Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Nikki here, and today I have a flip through of my 100-day project where I used magazine pages as a base to create some collage fodder. Now, just keeping in mind that when I do collage fodder, every piece doesn't have to be a masterpiece. Some of them are really quite simple, but it's a great way to use up old magazine pages, excess paint, and the plainer ones are really good for background building and collaging little pieces in behind just to add a burst of colour. So I've used all sorts of paints and pens and things like that to do this, and I thought I would show you what I've been up to. So this one here is simply black and gold paint stenciling. Don't know if the camera will pick up the metallics, but it's quite grungy looking. But again, I would probably never use this whole page. I will tear off little strips and just use it, you know, when I need it. This one here is just all sorts of grungy leftover dark paints when I was actually doing some gel printing. So I used a magazine page for some of my, to clean my roller on, and some of them really came out quite cool. This has some bubble wrap print on it as well. This is another one of those very grungy ones, all sorts of leftover paint, but strips of this is just fabulous for creating some texture and interesting colours on journaling pages. This one here is just mucking with a little bit of water paint just to see how they would sort of blend together. This one's just stenciling with some lovely copper coloured paint. Covered the page with alphabet stamps. This is just some different greens put on with an old credit card. Again, this is leftovers from gel printing, and I used this foam stamp to do the gel printing, and so each time I put it onto the gel plate, I then cleaned it off on this sheet as well. This one here is just some leftover brown and yellow paint that I just rolled on to the sheet. Another super grungy one, but I do love using these, especially in winter and stuff. I think that just looks fabulous. Some watercolor paint and a little bit of crayon to do a little bit of, tried to do sort of a bit of a resist thing there. Didn't really resist that much, but look, that's okay. This is just some mucky pink paint that I had left over. Again, love the textures and the different sort of patterns that appear on things like this. Again, leftover paint, I just smushed it on down with a brush. This was some bubble wrap, again, a leftover pink paint. Because at the start, a lot of these are not in order. A lot of these I did at the same time while I did the gel print challenge, which I almost finished. I'll probably do a video on that down the track. And so a lot of my sheets I did as my cleanup sheets and just experimented to see what would happen. That's just some graduating watercolor on there. Again, like cutting off, tearing off that strip there with all the edges. It just looks great in layering. Some more watercolor play. Leftover green paint, and then I just stamped on a variety of leaf shapes because you cut those out and it makes for some really eye-catching leaves to add to projects. This was a dark grey base. I've just used a stencil and some gesso to cover that in some stenciling. This was coffee dyeing and a few gold splatters that was left over from another project that I was doing. This is just, again, this was leftover paint, and I was trying to do something different, but this is what I ended up with. I'm not saying I love it, but again, tearing off little bits, absolutely perfect. bit of crayon and stuff. I had a box of crayons on my desk. I was having a bit of a clean out, so I just scribbled on a grungy green page that I'd made. This one was a pen that was running out of ink, and I was sort of trying to use it up, and it still kept going. I just drew on some patterns. This is paint, again, just done with a credit card, just swiping it down to give it some swirly patterns and some of these lovely thicker bits for texture. Tried painting flowers with coffee. Wouldn't call that the most successful thing I've ever done, but I learnt that if you want to get different shades, you need to do one bit, let it dry, and then do the next bit. Here's a perfect example. I did these little leaf, the base sort of flowery thing first with a tiny bit of coffee, and then added the other bit on when it was dry, and they didn't bleed together. But if you try and do it layer upon layer, all you end up with is a mess. Here's the same stencil used with black, then a bit of black and white, and then white, just because it fitted so nicely onto one sheet, and that way I've got 3 different color tones. This was just some sponging with leftover paint when I was doing a little mermaid project. Again, just leftovers, but I love some of the little bits. I may not use the whole sheet, but like that section there, absolutely adore it. This was using a really old brush that's really, like the bristles are really stiff, but I like the little line sort of patterns that it created. This was fun. It's actually, I don't know if you can see it, but it's grey with, I used a toilet roll ring to put silver circles on that one. This was again an old brush. I painted on the paint in circles just to see what would happen. And there's gold on the top. Again, it might just be a bit hard for the camera to catch the gold, but it does look pretty cool in real. And again, just some leftover watercolors from other projects I was doing. This was sort of a great way to get the days done. Instead of focusing on doing this in particular, I'd be working on something else and then use leftovers or whatever to create these. Same again. This one here, this was just a leftover paint. Then I had some gold left over from another project, so I just splattered it on. Leftover black paint, and then I stenciled on in copper. Again, don't know if the camera picks up the metallics as well as it should, but I love how that turned out. Was clearing up some paper scraps, just glued them all down as a very neutral collage sheet. This one here happened by accident. I had a small, a small glue stick, and it was sitting on top of a book, and it fell off the book down onto my paint plate, and I went, hang on a minute. So I just used that glue stick and a variety of paints to create that one, and I actually love how that turned out. This one here, I love the colors and the foliage in behind on the actual photo. So all I did was put some lighter colored leaves on top and let a lot of the actual original shine through. Here was some gel print experiments. Whilst I was doing the May challenge, I did some extra with different colors just to see how things would turn out. It was a great way to fill some of these sheets. This one's black and copper. I love, it's quite dark, but I do love how that one turned out. Leftover paint put down with a rubber spatula. Again, you've got the edges that are quite raised, so great for texture. Some more gel printing experiments. Love how a lot of these turned out. I don't know why I don't get my gel press out more often. It is the most fun thing to play with. And then this was a pink paint. I have a little tiny sample tube. I don't know where I got it from, and it must be pretty crappy quality because it wouldn't roll nicely on the gel plate. But I went, that's okay. When I actually took the print, it came up with all these little lumps and marks, and I actually love how that turned out. So that was just a lucky experiment. This is just another leftover sheet from gel printing. I've got 2 of these because I was having a lot of fun with this color combo. So I ended up with 2 of those. Again, leftover green paint, just rolled on with a roller. I love how some bits are dry and didn't get any paint. That's what makes it look interesting. Squiggling with my pen that still hadn't run out. A grungy one. This was some leftover brown, and then I did some stamping and a bit of stenciling on top of that one. This is super dark and grungy, but I actually love how it turned out. I love all these little rough patches. This was also gel press experimenting that didn't work out as nicely as I would liked, but makes for great collage fodder. Or playing with some watercolors. I like cutting out little strips of these and putting them in on journaling pages and things. They just give it a good lift. Again, leftover paint, and then I was playing with some of my paint pens because some of them were misbehaving, so I sort of just trialed them on there. Turned out okay. Just shapes with a thick pen. This is actually my favorite pen for doing marks with. The one that I used on a few of these was a really old one, and you could see it was struggling. I've got another 1 or 2 coming up where I opened a new one. This large chisel tip pen is just the best for making black marks because you can do thick ones on that edge or thinner ones using the point. And honestly, they last for ages. I cannot tell you how old this one was, and I've used it so many times. It's fabulous. More grunge, and again, some more stamping with that foam stamp that I had. And this here, I accidentally left the foam stamp sitting face down on this, and when I went to peel it off, look what happened. It must have all adhered to the actual stamp, but I don't care. I think it looks absolutely fabulous how that turned out. More just dark, grungy, leftover bits. Painted stripes in a rainbow, because I like using like whole long strips with the different colours. More grunge. This one's a blue background with copper and gold on it. Again, it looks fabulous when you see it for real, but I'm sure the camera will struggle to pick up on that. This was again a leftover paint, part roller, part other things, and also again had leftover gold and copper paint, so I just covered it in splatters. Now this one here was when I grabbed my new pen out, and have a look, those lines are just so clear and fabulous. I love that one. This one here, again, I actually liked the image underneath, so instead of just completely covering it, I just stenciled on some dots. This one was actually some purple watercolor that fell over onto my desk, and I just mopped it all up with this piece of paper, and then I did some purple and silver stenciling on top of it. This one here, again, leftover paint, and then I used that, I can't remember what this stuff is called, this honeycomb. It's where sequins and things are cut out of. And then I just got some colours and covered it with that. Green mess paint underneath, just stenciled on a few leaves. This was a stencil that has just little squares of all different patterns, so I just put that one to good use. Bit of water, wavy sort of shapes on a blue background. Another leaf one. I love doing these because when you cut these out, they look absolutely fabulous because they're multi-tonal. Leftover paint again. Love the lines. Love the texture of that. This was a mess that didn't work out, but with collage fodder, you don't have to love it. you can just use little bits and add more on top of it. So I was going to throw this out because what I tried to do didn't work. And I went, no, that's not what this is all about. We'll keep that one. This was from just a selection. I got a box of markers at a Planner Girl swap. They're all neutral colours, so I was just having a play, drawing lines and things with that one. This was going to be for a project. I wanted flowers in a sort of peachy colour, and then I was going to die cut them out, but I didn't end up using it. But I thought it's a perfect fodder sheet. A little bit of leftover paint again on that. This one, you know, grab a white pen and a green paint pen or whatever, and then add more patterns onto this will look fabulous. This was paint smooshing. I had some paint on a large plastic sheet. I just squirted some water on and then put this page down on it, and that's what I ended up with. Again, leftover paint. Started off with a gel press base, and that didn't work out the way I wanted. It was an experiment and just left it at that. This one here, I did some gel press with homemade stamps that I made with a hot glue gun, and that was sort of experimenting and leftover bits. Just stenciled on a heap of letters. I love tearing off strips of this and just using a little bit as a highlight. Oh, now this would be one of my favorite ones. Again, I was playing with my gel press and I went, hang on a minute. So I started off light and I got darker and darker as I went round, using that same foam stamp again, but I love all the shades and colors of this. And again, there's metallic copper on that one. That's probably my favorite sheet of this whole 100 days. Same thing here, again, experimenting with my gel press plate just to see what would happen. I love how this sort of has a really aged look, and I cannot even tell you exactly how I did that. It just turned out that way. A little bit of leftover pink paint and some blue hearts stenciled on. Leftovers again, just got a paintbrush and made marks. This one here, again, didn't turn out how I wanted it to turn out, but that's the way it goes. Again, cut up into little bits, we're good. Oh, this is a very nice and very dark grungy mess, but again, this one's purples, when that with beautiful gold metallic on it. I would actually like to die cut some pieces. I have a plan for that one. Leftover watercolor paint. I mixed up too much pink, so I just splooshed it down. Again, experimenting, using some black paint and a dry roller, and then stenciling on some dots. This was another experiment with my gel press, using metallic paints because I love them. This is another one. This end, it was a very dirty mess underneath, and I just stenciled on some flowers. Good old X's. These look fabulous, torn up into little bits. This was done with paint though. This one was also done with some leftover black paint. Again, so was this one. Experimenting with just some different green colors that I have in a new palette. Playing with some pastels, stamping on leaves. Again, I liked some of this background, so I didn't want to try and completely hide it. Playing with another stencil that has, it's a large one that has 4 different patterns, so just had to play with that. Leftover paint, using my brayer. Don't really know quite what I was trying to achieve there. It didn't work, but doesn't matter. I'm sure we can do something interesting with it. Another one where I have a stencil for all numbers. So this had a little bit of orange and brown paint on the base, and I've just stenciled on numbers. This was literally me cleaning off a brush with 2 different colored paints. This was a brayer cleaning sheet. Again, I love the texture where it's not fully covered. Same again, this time using a variety of browns. And this one was one stencil that I put on one way, then the other way, then the other way, and the other way. And I quite like how that turned out. This was just grabbing my pen and drawing on some plants. You just tear those off and use little bits of it. And the lucky last one here, again, playing with blue and then some metallic blue paint using a cardboard roller. And that's that. So there is 100 pages of collage fodder. I had a look in my old folder that I did last year, and honestly, I've got less than half left. Some of them I don't love. I may even throw them out. I just put holes in these and put them in a ring binder. I find that the easiest way to keep them close and make sure I use them. And then you can just flip through, and I just tear little strips off when I need some for a journaling project. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't ever throw away your old paint. Keep an old magazine close by, and every time you've got some leftover paint, pop it down and you can end up with a ton of lovely collage fodder too. Hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now.